Okay, in this video, we're going to talk about the break and continue statements. If you remember in the while loops, we talked about how we could stop a while loop using the expression in the parentheses, how we inside the loop make it become negative somehow or false somehow, be it a counter reaching a certain amount or an exit flag, right? So there's another way to do this. And that's using what's called the break statement or the continue statement, which allows the loop to actually not continue with any code beneath it, but to repeat from the beginning. So first we'll talk about the break statement. So let's say we prompt the user for info, and then we check for valid info. And then we break if it's good, if not, repeat. So printf will do the grade example. So enter in a number between 0 and 100. And then I'll store that in a variable from the keyboard using scanf. I'll need a user input variable, so I will declare that up top. So now we'll have that stored there. Now we can do the check. Okay, if user input is valid, so what's valid? If it's greater than or equal to 0 and the user input, remember you got to put the variable twice, is less than or equal to 100. And if it's good, you can say printf valid input. You don't need to put this, but I'll put it. And just put a break statement here. So this is kind of walking through the code here. When the program starts from the main, goes here, it says we have a variable user input. Now while one, this whole thing, this is an infinite loop, right? So something needs to break it. So either we make this expression inside false, or we use the break statement on the inside when we need to. So the first thing that's going to happen in this while loop is it's going to ask the user to enter in between number between 0 and 100. It's going to store it in user input, and then we're going to check to see if it's between 0 and 100. If it is, it gets into this code and it prints out valid input, and then calls the break statement, which breaks the closest while loop. So when I say closest, if I had another while loop in here, wherever that break is located within the code block, that's the while loop that it breaks, whatever is closest. So if I had another while in here, while 1, and then it encompassed all of this, this break would only break this while loop, not this one. So you need to be careful of that if you have nested loops. Okay, let's say we want to have our whole program where we enter in a numerical grade and we want a letter grade to pop out. Let's say we want that to run forever. So real quickly, I'll build the if-else tree that will check the user input. So if it's greater than or equal to 90, that's going to print out an A. And then because of the way else ifs work, it's connected. If it's not greater than or equal to 90, it must be less than 90. So I can just keep checking it this way. This one is a B. That will be my C. That will be my D. This will be my F. This will be 70, this will be 60. Okay, so now all of this code is in the while loop. Okay, so if the user runs this code, it gets into here, and if they put something invalid, it's going to continue, right? It's going to continue to here. It's going to say, if you put in -1, this one becomes false, this one is still true, but when you do a 0 and a 1, that's a 0 with the and. So instead of maybe breaking, maybe we can use something else and we need to check something else. So instead of checking for valid input, let's check for invalid input. So invalid would be less than 0 or greater than 100. Okay, so that would be invalid input. But if we enter invalid input, we don't want to break this whole while loop. We want to restart from the beginning, right? Because we want our program to keep running and not totally stop. So instead of using break, we can use the continue statement. So what this program does is when it starts from the main, sees user inputs created. We have this while loop that is infinitely running. The only thing that could stop it is a break statement or a return statement. So it gets into here, it says please put in a number between 0 and 100. We store it in user input. Then we check to see if it's invalid. So that would be invalid. 0 if it's less than 0, or if it's greater than 100. What we're going to do is we're going to print this to the screen, and then what continue does is it just loops back to the top of this code block here. And it will just keep coming back. It won't do anything after. The only way it gets past this line is if this is false, period. So only valid input gets past this block of code, and it will print this out. So let's give that a try. So I'm going to enter something invalid first. There you go. Enter in a number between 0 and 100. 101. Now let's give it something valid. 85. So it got past this block, got past this first part of the if-else structure, made it into here because it was an 85, which is greater than or equal to 80. Then it reached the bottom and repeated to the while loop. Now, what if you want to exit? Well, you need to ask the user again at the bottom, would you like to continue? So you can just say printf, would you like to, let's say exit instead. And then we'll say put in 0 if you'd like to exit. And we'll put that in the user input. Don't forget your ampersand. And then we'll do a check. If user input is equal to 0, then we want to break the loop. Give that a try. Whoops. This is still running. Give that a try. Give it invalid. See, notice when I gave it invalid, it didn't jump down to here at all. Didn't even ask me if I want to exit, because this continue just brings it automatically back to the top. So now let's give it a good one. Would you like to exit? And then let's say 1, because it's not 0. 0 is to exit. We get a good one in there. 85. This is a good way to test your code when you're trying to see to make sure it handles all your cases. And then do a low number. And then, yeah, I'd like to exit. There you go.